Back in the late 90s, my young mind fed off of monsters and creatures. Naturally, I fell in love with the big green mofo. When news broke that the latest film, the infamous '98 Zilla film, was set to have its very own cartoon, I was like, fuck yes. Well, not really, because I was too young to cuss, but the idea is there. Excitement was an understatement. I had toys and even Godzilla clothes. And now I was finally getting a Saturday morning cartoon that seemed to be made entirely just for me. The series came out and it was epic. Sure, at that time I was young and didn't fully comprehend some of the issues that the show had, which we will delve into here in a bit. But for the most part, Godzilla was something I looked forward to every single weekend. Recently, I went and rewatched the series to get a fresh take on everything with my newfound adult brain. For the most part, I was still just as hooked to the series as I was back in the day, but the glaring and obvious troubles of Godzilla became much clearer to see. Other Godzilla fans generally felt the same way about the series. An honorable attempt to make the 1998 Godzilla film have some sort of lasting legacy. The show started off with a bang. A new monster every episode, and Godzilla got to show more of his talents that made him stand out more as the God King that the character is supposed to be. After all but being shunned from existence, the '98 Zilla vision of Godzilla got a slight but much appreciated alteration. Visually, he still looked like Zilla from the film, and many of his abilities seen in the film were still a mainstay in the cartoon. However, each of these abilities were amplified to much more standard levels of Godzilla power. His atomic breath looked much more like it was supposed to. Deadly blue, green flames, pure catastrophic power compared to the basic flame breath that was seen in the film. His ability to dig and swim was sped up drastically, making these much more valuable assets to this adaptation of Godzilla. No more being blasted by some damn torpedoes. This version of Godzilla also seemed to be quite intelligent. Numerous times during this series, he was able to all but problem solve and even communicated to the rest of the characters on the screen like he was some sort of giant dog. Following the journeys of Dr. Nyctopoulos and his band of misfits known as the Humanitarian Environmental Analyst Team, aka HEAT, the series took characters from the film and made them much more animated and unique. At times, though, this would come across a bit too childish. Hearing Dr. Craven bitch every episode about something got a bit annoying, and I found myself rolling my eyes from time to time due to his ridiculous cowardly antics. For the most part, though, the team was solid, and of all the cartoon teams of the 90s, Heat was one of the more relatable and mature ones of them, even with all the cheesy dialogue that the group consistently threw at each other.
Cool. Oh wait, not cool. Very not cool.
The story of the Godzilla animated series followed a much more classic Godzilla-styled storyline than that of the film. This time, we actually got a plethora of gigantic and terrifying monsters. Heat was constantly solving mysteries of how whole villages disappeared, or how a new monster was terrorizing New York or some other skyscraper-riddled city. During this time, Godzilla would follow the team around as he imprinted on Nick in the very first episode and considered the Doctor to be his mother of sorts. Together, Heat and Godzilla would put an end to the threat, but usually not without having to go through some troubles of their own. The show was surprisingly deep and not just a simple kid show. There were things that I did not understand watching as a kid, but as an adult I found myself blown away from time to time by the level of pure drama and suspenseful moments. It is by no means a children's show, and is certainly centered to appeal to audiences of all ages and lifestyles. The late 90s, at least for me, were the last great years of cartoons being produced at a very high, standard, and to me Godzilla was no different. Everything from the sound of Godzilla and the other monsters, the highly detailed cartoon style, the music, and even the badass intro scene was top-notch. There were occasions where the characters' faces would look a bit strange with how they were drawn, but this only seemed to come up in certain difficult angles. The voice acting was good, even with some lackluster dialogue from time to time. And to this day, I can remember all of the voices of the main characters in my head right now, like I can just imagine all of them. So let's go over some of the goods that I think the Godzilla animated series brings to the table. First and foremost, the powers of Godzilla. I mean, he's a badass in the cartoon. Everything he does is so cool. He's like athletic, he's powerful, he's smart. He's like your best pet that you always wanted, you know? He'd help you beat the ass out of the person that you want to beat the ass, but he'd also, you know, let you snuggle on him. Maybe. His powers are awesome. He can dig super fast. He's got the breath finally. He acts like Godzilla should act. Secondly, we have the monsters. Every single episode, pretty much a new monster. They're all awesome. They're all unique. They all challenge Godzilla and heat in their own specific ways, and I think that's just done really, really well. Another thing I like about this series is the animation style that it was drawn in. It brings an adult-friendly style to Godzilla, and honestly, it looks really badass, and it's a type of quality of cartooning that definitely doesn't exist anymore, at least that I'm aware of. And the last good thing I really like Heat, the team, Nick and everybody. They have this special bond, this special commitment, and there's like these real life drama between the group that's almost like what you would imagine would happen with a team in real life like this. And minus a few of the cheesy things that happen and all that. Like, I could see a real team actually acting like this, and that's awesome for a cartoon. But not everything is a good thing about this series. I'm a Godzilla fanboy, but I'm not an idiot. Mostly. One of the most jarring bad things about this series is how each episode is all over the place. Rarely do you find an episode to where it continues a story, you know? It's like, you have this one episode this week where they're in China, you have this next one where they're in some island, they have this another one where they're back in the States. It's all over the place. The pacing of the story is completely random. And we'll get into why that is here in a few seconds. The development, scheduling, and competition for Godzilla, the animated series, was rough. If you go and research it, you can see that the show had some development issues. There was a lot of butting of heads, you know? People couldn't decide what they wanted to do with it. They wanted to make it good, they wanted to make it special, but yet the downfall of the 98 Godzilla movie really didn't help them with that. You'll also see that the scheduling for the show was whacked. One weekend it'd come up at 8 o'clock, the next it'd come up at 11 because they'd push it back for other TV shows. Which brings us to the last point of this. The competition during the late 90s was rough for cartoons. There was Pokemon, there was Digimon, there was all these other cartoons, and sadly, Godzilla kept getting pushed back for these more popular TV shows. And in the end, it really kind of killed it. At the end of the day, though, the Godzilla cartoon series is still one of my all-time favorites. If not for Pokemon and Digimon ruling the airways, and, you know, if they didn't have such crappy management, the show may have gotten a chance to, have a really memorable legacy in fans' minds. While I've been talking about this, I really want to go back and watch this whole series all over again. It's that special to me, and I really think it's that good. After nearly 20 years, the show may be pretty much forgotten, at least by the general public. Only a few pure Godzilla fans probably still remember and think about it. And to these people, including myself, it will always remain a part of my Godzilla life. So let me know if you like this Monstalgia episode where we go back and take a look at something awesome from back in the day, and we kind of talk about it. We bring it back to the forefront of the general mindset. If you want to see more, let me know what you want to see. You have any favorite cartoons, movies, whatever, let me know, and maybe I'll go back and take a look at it. So make sure to like and subscribe to DangerVille, my residents. Peace out.